U.S. support for Israel is critical, especially since the U.S. foot the bill for an estimated 70% of Israel's war-related military spending since October 7th. I'll repeat that. 70% of Israel's war-related military spending since October 7th. The U.S. financed the genocide and provided the bombs and all of Israel's manned aircraft. But why does it get all this money and support? Following the Six-Day War, on June 29, 1967, CIA Director Richard Helms sought a briefing from former CIA Director John McCone on the importance of Middle East oil to the United States. No surprise, the U.S. possession of oil in the Middle East is of great importance to the U.S., McCone said. The subject is all too often dismissed as purely a commercial and vested interest of the oil companies, whereas, if looked at in the broadest sense, it is clearly an interest of the U.S. government as well. McCone was also concerned with the fallout from the closure of the Suez Canal. Egypt closed it after Israel's attack, and it remained closed from June 1967 to June 1975. Interestingly enough, a lot of people don't know that the Suez Canal was closed for 8 years. This caused considerable distance increases. McCone recommended that the U.S. government emphasize a balanced position, lest the U.S. appear oriented toward Israel. As McCone put it, we must be sure that our official statements come out loud and clear and represent a very balanced position because there is a certain amount of brainwashing going on by the press. But the worst was yet to come. On the 6th of October 1973, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack to recapture their territories. It was one of Israel's worst intelligence failures. In the opening days, Israel lost dozens of tanks and planes and suffered thousands of casualties. Nixon and Kissinger debated launching an airlift to resupply the Israelis, eventually approving one of the largest U.S. military resupply operations since World War II. On October 12th, a memorandum by the chairman of Exxon, Mobil, Texaco, and Standard Oil, which was seen by the president, expressed their concerns. We are convinced of the seriousness of the intentions of the Saudis and Kuwaitis and that any actions of the U.S. government at this time in terms of increased military aid to Israel will have a critical and adverse effect on our relations with the moderate Arab-producing countries. As told by Patrick Tyler, former chief correspondent for the New York Times, the U.S. airlift had been followed by a White House message to Congress on October 19th asking for a special $2.2 billion appropriation to pay for the arms being shipped to Israel. That incited an even more intense reaction. The next day, King Faisal of Saudi Arabia announced a total embargo of crude oil exports to the United States. Oil prices quadrupled, causing a global recession, spawning a new beast, stagflation. The consequences were so far-reaching and long-lasting, they're worth studying on their own, but just know this: it was a disaster that didn't end with Nixon's presidency. There's a reason that when Dick Cheney became vice president in January 2001, the Jerusalem Post reported that he is routinely referred to as an oil man, which in the pro-Israel community translates as not sympathetic to Israel. Cheney had criticized the Clinton administration, while CEO of Halliburton, for its sanctions against Iran. Clinton said in a speech at a World Jewish Congress dinner,
"Last month, after the Conoco Company announced a $1 billion contract to help Iran develop its oil reserves, I was prepared to stop the project by signing an executive order banning any United States firms from financing, supervising, or managing Iranian oil reserves. But Conoco ultimately decided to abandon the deal. And let me add that one of the most effective opponents of that was Edgar Bronfman. He's a major shareholder in Conoco. He would have gained financially from that. I did not reach my decision in that case lightly. One of the major hallmarks of our administration's foreign policy has been opening new markets abroad and aggressively helping our firms to compete, to create jobs for Americans here at home. But there are times when important economic interests must give way to even more important security interests. I am formally announcing my intention to cut off all trade and investment with Iran.
The Washington Post reported on Clinton's ban that blocked the Conoco deal. longtime World Jewish Congress President Edgar Bronfman had indeed lobbied vigorously on Capitol Hill. The collapse of the Conoco deal was bad news for other American oil firms, which have been eager to increase their business dealings with Iran. Returning to Jeffrey Goldberg's 2005 New Yorker article, Rosen and other AIPAC staff members helped write and engineer the passage of the Iran and Libya Sanctions Act, to the chagrin of hundreds of companies who joined an anti-sanctions lobby called USA Engage. The companies included, among others, American Express, Apple, AT&T, BP America, Caterpillar, Chevron, Exxon, Dow Chemical, Halliburton, Honeywell, ITT, Lockheed Martin, Mobil, Texaco. If Edgar Bronfman was interested in enriching shareholders, why would he be on the other side of the sanctions issue against hundreds of American corporations? Indeed, he was himself a shareholder of Conoco, and he blocked a lucrative deal for the company. To quickly review, Harry S. Truman recognized Israel for domestic political reasons. Matthew J. Connolly, who served as Truman's appointment secretary, a role roughly equivalent to today's White House chief of staff, said the decision on recognizing Israel was made with the assistance of David K. Niles, who handled the minority problems, and myself. With the votes and financial contributions involved, the decision was a matter of, more or less, just pure politics to me. Leading the charge against recognition was then Secretary of State George C. Marshall, who bitterly complained on the record that the decision was a transparent dodge to win a few votes, and based on domestic political considerations, while the problem which confronted us was international. The decisive change in the relationship occurred under Johnson, whose Middle East policy was influenced by Mike Feldman and Abe Feinberg. Nixon, along with Henry Kissinger, decided on an airlift during the 1973 war that saw a massive and permanent arms increase. Over the years, the pro-Israel lobby made examples of a number of powerful congressmen.
In recent years, AIPAC and the pro-Israel PACs have helped defeat, among others, Congressman Paul Findlay and Pete McCloskey, Senators Harrison Schmitt of New Mexico, Walter Huddleston of Kentucky, and Chuck Percy of Illinois.
After the defeat of Charles Percy, senator from Illinois for 18 years who chaired the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, AIPAC CEO Tom Dine said, "All the Jews in America from coast to coast gathered to oust Percy, and American politicians got the message." In 1987, David K. Shipler reported in the New York Times, "The leading pro-Israel lobby in Washington, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, has become a major force in shaping United States policy in the Middle East. The organization has gained the power to influence a presidential candidate's choice of staff, to block practically any arms sale to an Arab country, and to serve as a catalyst for intimate military relations between the Pentagon and the Israeli army. Its leading officials are consulted by State Department and White House policymakers, by senators and generals. Further, politicians take AIPAC very seriously," said Bob Beckel, Walter Mondale's campaign manager in the 1984 election. "You'd have to put consideration of AIPAC right up with organized labor. I would put them up in the top tier." AIPAC's perceived clout, especially its ability to mobilize majority votes in the House and Senate on certain issues, has given it stature with the executive branch. It is an extraordinarily well-staffed, dedicated, and able organization that pursues its work systematically and relentlessly and effectively, a State Department official said. His admiration had a certain chagrin, for members of Congress who support Israel had just forced the administration to withdraw its proposal to sell Maverick air-to-ground missiles to Saudi Arabia just when Washington was requesting Saudi help in protecting shipping in the Persian Gulf. In July 2005, Jeffrey Goldberg wrote for The New Yorker about having dinner with Stephen Rosen, then Director of Foreign Policy Issues at AIPAC. "A lobby is like a night flower. It thrives in the dark and dies in the sun," he said. "I hope you can all appreciate my fixation on the pro-Israel lobby and how more attention to the issue comprises, in my view, much-needed sunlight." Before Rosen came to AIPAC, Goldberg writes, the group focused mainly on Congress, but Rosen arrived brandishing a new idea, that the organization could influence the outcome of policy disputes within the executive branch, in particular, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the National Security Council. Goldberg observes, AIPAC is a leviathan among lobbies, as influential in its sphere as the National Rifle Association and AARP. although it is, by comparison, much smaller. AIPAC has about 100,000 members, the NRA more than 4 million. AIPAC is unique in the top tier of lobbies because its concerns are the economic health and security of a foreign nation, and because its members are drawn almost entirely from a single ethnic group. AIPAC's leaders can be immoderately frank about the group's influence. "You see this napkin," Rosen said. "In 24 hours, we could have the signatures of 70 senators on this napkin." Today, members of Congress and candidates understand early on that opposing a strong pro-Israel stance can cost them politically. The pro-Israel lobby remains ready to fund campaigns and exert pressure on those who speak out. In June 2024, The Times reported, AIPAC unleashes a record $14.5 million bid to defeat a critic of Israel. That critic is Jamal Bowman, the now former representative from New York's 16th District, encompassing the North Bronx and southern Westchester. In barely a month, an AIPAC-affiliated super PAC has spent $14.5 million, up to $17,000 an hour, on the race, filling television screens, stuffing mailboxes, and clogging phone lines with caustic attacks. With days to go, the expenditures have already eclipsed what any interest group has ever spent on a single House race. AIPAC's super PAC, the United Democracy Project, has already spent $1.5 million to take out, again now former Representative Cori Bush, who was a black member of the House's left-wing squad like Mr. Bowman. Interestingly, the paid messages almost never mention Israel. This ad was seen 180 million times. Assuming the outcome is as we expect it, the message is going to be that being pro-Israel is not just wise policy, it's smart politics, said Mark Mellman, a Democratic pollster whose Democratic Majority for Israel spent $1 million against Mr. Bowman. Their efforts were no doubt helped by the post-October 7th political donations to AIPAC, as reported by The Forward, who called it a rare look. As of February 2024, AIPAC had raised some $90 million. Among the larger donations were from Daniel Sundheim, founder of the investment firm D1 Capital Partners, who pledged $2 million, Milton Cooper, executive chairman of the real estate giant Kimco Realty, who pledged $1 million, Tony Ressler, co-founder of the asset management firm Ares and owner of the Atlanta Hawks, pledged $1 million, Jonathan Gray, president of Blackstone, the world's largest private equity firm, pledged $1 million. One pledge was an outlier at $11 million. The pledge was credited to Mr. Anonymous Anonymous. The pledge contained personal contact information and a short bio that identified Mr. Anonymous Anonymous as Leonid Radvinsky, the elusive owner of the content platform OnlyFans.